Talmud page in Berakhot. It's today's daf for Friday is on daf Lamed. We're going to start on daf Kaftet 29, page 2, second side of the page. We're starting 29b, and we were just talking about how Rabbi Eliezer had said in the Mishnah, "Ha'osei tfilato keva ein tfilato tachnunim." Somebody who makes his prayers fixed, his prayer is not supplication. Now, what does that mean? There are several different interpretations from the sages. Rabbi Yoshaya says that making your prayer fixed instead of making a supplication, it means that you act as if davening is a burden. The rabbi's opinion is anybody whose prayer is not tachnunim, it's not a supplication, it means it isn't a heartfelt supplication. If it's fixed, it's not supplication. If it's fixed, it's not a heartfelt supplication, but rather he's just doing it to fulfill his duties. He's just saying it without emotion. That's the rabbi's opinion. Rabbah and Rav Yosef say that it's anybody who doesn't pray for something new in his prayer. He doesn't think about something personal that he needs to beseech God for, or thank God for, or praise God for. And perhaps something in the world, something in the situation in the world, to pray for Israel, to pray for what's going on in the city, to pray what's going on in the country. Or Rabbi Zera, in retrospect, according to the Baal Shem Tov, the Baal Shem Tov is not mentioned on this stuff. However, in terms of teaching people how to pray, we have great sages in the Talmud, and we also have great Rishonim, the early commentaries, and the great later commentaries. And one of the greatest later commentaries is Baal Shem Tov, who said, when you're praying for the Shekhinah. So it might be making your prayer fixed is just praying for fixed things in the world that you see. And this is just my own understanding. Everybody knows the Baal Shem Tov says, when you're davening for anything for yourself, daven for the Shekhinah, daven for God's presence, because everything's coming out of the Shekhinah, because the world is the Shekhinah. The whole world is an expression of the Shekhinah. So if anything's wrong in the world, it means something is not fixed in the Shekhinah, in the presence of God. So, Rabbi Zera, back to the sages of the Gemara, we're jumped up to the 18th century in the Common Era. Now we're going to go zip back to the time of the Talmud. Rabbi Zera did not introduce anything new in his prayer because he was afraid he would make a mistake. He had such a great high regard. Rabbi Zera was a great scholar, and he didn't say anything new in his prayer. But he had such a respect for every word in the prayer instituted by the members of the Great Assembly, the Anshe Knesset Gedolah, that he would not add new things in his prayer. That's what we're up to from last time, and now we're going to continue. We're in the middle of daf, it says here 58, in the Ram Shas. Where are we? We're in the very middle of the page. There says Abaya. It's about 35 lines on the top of the page. Abaya, it's before the wide lines, if you have a regular Ramshas. Just make sure the microphone's on. And, yes, the microphone is on. So, Abaya's opinion. Abaya bar Avin. Rabbi Chanina bar Rabin, Damar Tzavayhu. Kol she'en mitpalel im dimdume achama, Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, mitzvah litpalel im dimdume achama. Both Rav Avin bar Abba and Rabbi Yochanan said that it's a mitzvah to pray with the reddening of the sun. What does the reddening of the sun mean? In the morning, it's just after the sun rises, and it's very red when it just comes over the horizon. Meaning they considered it a mitzvah to pray as early as possible, We'll discuss later how it's possible in emergency situations. In emergency situations, it's permitted to pray even earlier, but the best time to pray is with sunrise. And they also said to pray mincha with when the sun is red and just upon the horizon going down, at the sunset, basically. Dimdume achama means reddening of the sun, twilight. The twilight might be, it's certainly while the sun is visible. Dimdume achama. Amar Bizera, Maikra Yirucha im Shamish Belifnei Yoreach Dordorim. What is the Rabbi Zera asked the question? He said, what is the verse, they shall see you with the sun? What is the proof text that we know we're supposed to pray with the reddening of the sun? He said, Yirucha im Shamish, you should be seen with the sun. That's Shacharit, just at sunrise, the sunrise service. Lifnei Yareach Dordorim, and before the moon, that would be Mincha. Or the evening prayer, perhaps. But we're talking about when the sun is up, so it must mean Mincha. And Rashi says, what does Rashi say? Rashi says before the moon is actually Mincha. Laiti ala b'marava aman d'mitzale im dimdume chama. My taima dilma mitrafa le'sha'ata. In Eretz Yisrael they cursed, and as we said previously, it doesn't mean that they cursed like a warlock, God forbid. It means that they were very, how did we say it last time? Just on yesterday's daf. It means to be very upset with something. That the rabbis were very serious and were very objected strongly. The language that Rabbi Steinsaltz writes is, this means that Abaye disapproved of the custom and would harshly criticize those who followed it. And he says that whenever it says laite or layet in the Talmud, translated as curse, it actually means strong disapproval and great criticism for those doing something. So here again, it's in the Marava, in the land of Israel, they didn't like people praying at sunset, right when the sun is going down, because if something happened, they're going to miss the time for prayer. So the rabbis of Israel, in the land of Israel, in the Talmud, strongly disapproved of this. There is a great rabbi, one of the great Sephardic rabbis is Shaul Dwick HaKohen. Shaul Dwick HaKohen, of blessed memory, was one of the master Kabbalists of Jerusalem, and he was famous for praying. He knew every detail of the Siddur Rashash. The Siddur Rashash has all the names of God and all the Partsufim and all the Sfirot and all the details, everything from the writings of the Ari, the great Rashash of Israel. The land of Israel instituted it into a Kabbalistic prayer book, and it's a highly complex, it's like advanced physics, so it's very comparable in the religious sphere to the secular sphere, lahavdil. If somebody were to, basically it's comparing somebody who gets away with calculus, and he's very smart, but then there's levels beyond that, advanced doctoral degree in physics. This is the Kabbalah. It's very difficult stuff, takes years of preparation and years of practice, and but for some people it's possible. So he himself would pray from a normal shacharit. How long does shacharit take? The morning prayer takes a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. He, on a normal prayer, without the Torah reading, would take him 45 minutes, and with the Torah reading would be an hour, instead of these 3-hour Kabbalistic minions that we have these days. So he knew every detail on the page. Now, why am I mentioning him here? Because once we're talking about davening vatikin, davening with the sunrise, the dimdume echama. So first thing in the morning. So the most machmir way to pray the morning service is to say the Shema to get up to the point in the Siddur where you're saying the Shema, maybe, let's say 5 or 2 minutes before sunrise, and then 2 minutes before sunrise you're saying Shema, and then by the time the sun is just coming, the first speck of the sun over the horizon, you're saying Adonai Sfatay Titach, God may He open my lips, and start the Amida prayer. So, they noticed that Shaul Dwicker Kohen was not praying Vatikin like all the other Kabbalists. He was starting a little later. He maybe was starting 10 minutes after sunrise, 15 minutes. And so they started, what? The great Kabbalist, he doesn't have a Vatikin. What? Maze? Mapiton? Makubal Gadol? He looked at them and he said, Anachnu lo ovdim et hashemesh. Excuse me, but we don't serve the sun. We're not praying to the sun. What did he mean by that? He meant there's some people, they get all inspired to wake up early and to daven early. And that could be a very good thing. But what they're doing is they're getting up and they're quickly getting dressed and they're running to the kotel or even davening at home and very quickly putting on their tefillin and saying the words very fast, and their whole prayer is over in 10 minutes. And they're doing it, I prayed Vatikin, I prayed with the sunrise. But their prayer it's more or less they're praying to the clock. They're praying to the sun. They're not praying to God. They're not praying to the one and only Ribono Shel Olam. It's something. We do not worship the sun, said Harav Shaul Dwicker Cohen, Hasadeh. So back to the Gemara. New sugya. Rabbi Yehoshua Omer, Hamalech b'makom sakana mitpelal tefillah katsara. There were just 2 lines above the wide lines on Daf Chavtet Amud Bet, 29b. So, in the Ramshas. So, Rabbi Yeshua says in the Mishnah, somebody who's in a dangerous place, he should pray a brief prayer. And then, how exactly did he say it? The Mishnah says, one who cannot recite a complete prayer because he's walking in a place of danger recites a brief prayer and says, Redeem, Lord, your people and the remnant of Israel, and at every transition, Parashat Ibor, be with the people of Israel at every Parashat Ibor, at every transition. May their needs be before you. Baruch atah Hashem Shomei Tefillah. So, what is Parashat Ibor? The sages will now discuss. Parashat Ibor, Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Mar Ukva, Afilu b'sha'a she'ta mitmale aleihem evra ki isha ubara, you called tzorchehem lefanecha. Even at a time, you pray to God and say, even at a time when you're filled with evra. How are we translating that? Even at a time when you're filled with anger, evra, contempt towards them, meaning God, we're not doing God's will. We're not good kids. All kids are good, but we're not acting properly. We're not acting in the right way. We're not fulfilling God's mitzvahs. And then God has evra, has anger towards us, like a pregnant woman. We said we're trying to define Parashat Ibor. Please God, be with us at every Parashat Ibor, roughly translated as transition. So that's Parashat Ibor. Transition is Ibor is like ubara, a pregnant woman. Then why was a pregnant woman be angry? Because it's very difficult to be pregnant. Those of you who have pregnant wives understand that it's very uncomfortable, especially in the 9th month. There's morning sickness, and it's very hard. And a pregnant woman could get upset at her husband for putting her in this situation, or at whatever, and people around her. It's a sensitive issue. So, and then the birth itself, very, very painful. I'll never understand. But the other Gemara talks about how one of the things that the high priest would pray for in the mikveh on Yom Kippur is that to nullify the curse of all the women who are praying that they should never ever have a child again when they're having birth for a child because it's so painful. And they're cursing out their husbands. So the high priest in the waters of the mikveh would nullify these prayers. So that God is compared, as it were, to a pregnant woman. So we say that even at a time you're filled with anger at them like a pregnant woman, may still take care of all of their needs. No matter how angry you might be with us, God, take care of our needs. Iket amre, amar Rav Chisda, amar Mar Ukva. Some say, Rav Chisda said, in the name of Mar Ukva, afilu you kol tzarchehem lefanecha. Some said, afilu b'shah shehem ovrim al divra Torah. Parashat Ibor, lashon avara, passing, transgressing. So even at a time when they're transgressing the Torah, you kol tzarchechem lefanecha. Even if you see Israel sinning, God, please take care of all of our needs. Everybody needs a house. Everybody needs parnasa. Everybody needs a house, apartment, whatever, a roof, and food on the table, and a roof over their heads. And we all need a place to daven, and we all need health, and we all need to be able to study Torah. And we all need parnasa. And even please God, even if we're not fulfilling your Torah the way you ideally want us to, don't deny us the necessities of life. That's Parashat Ibor. That's the meaning of the Mishnah. Amar Rabbi Yeshua Omer Hamalech b'makom sakana. If you're in a dangerous place, mitpalel tefillah katzara, you pray a short prayer, and that is, and the short prayer of the Mishnah, just to review it, so it's all very clear to us, is this: Hamit palel tefillah kasara v'omer hosha Hashem et amcha et she'erit Yisrael b'kol parashat Ibor yutzarchechem lefanecha baruch atem shomei tefillah. Now we continue. Tanu Rabbanan hamhalech b'makom gedudei chaya listi mit palel tefillah kasara. If you're in a place of where there's wild animals or there's bandits, in a dangerous place, walking through a bad neighborhood, perhaps, pray. Don't stand and pray a long prayer. Pray. In fact, don't pray no prayer whatsoever. You should say a short prayer. Ezi tefillah ksara. What's a short prayer? Rabbi Eliezer Omer asar suncha b'shamayim mimal v'ten nachat ruach lireecha mitachat. Do your will in heaven above. V'ten nachat ruach lireecha mitachat, and give nachat ruach, a good feeling, contentment. Give contentment to your creation below, to those who fear you below. V'hatov b'necha aseh, and do which is good in your eyes. Baruch atem shomei tefillah. So it's roughly 20 words. A very short prayer. You can say it quietly to yourself. You don't have to hear it. Nobody else has to hear it. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Shma sha'avat amcha Yisrael v'aseh mehera bakashatam baruch atah Hashem t'chumei tefillah. According to Rabbi Yeshua, you say, hear the cries of your people Israel and quickly fulfill their requests. Blessed are you who hears prayer. Rabbi Elazar b'Rabbi Tzadok Omer, according to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Tzadok, the short prayer is like this: Shma tza'akat amcha Yisrael v'aseh mehera bakashatam baruch atem shomei tefillah. Hear the cries. Instead of sha'avat, he said tza'akat. Sha'ava, what's the difference between sha'ava and tza'aka? Tza'aka is stronger. It's really crying out. Sha'ava, the way he's translating it is, The sha'ava is translated as a cry. Hear the cry of your nation. Rabbi Elazar Bar Rabbi Tzadok says, hear the shouts. Hear the shouts of your nation. Some cry to God, some are crying, and they're really crying. They don't even know they're crying to God. Some people are shouting, and they don't even know that they're shouting to God from the brokenheartedness. And that all we need is for God to hear us and answer our prayers. Acherim omrim, others say, what would say others say? There was one of the sages who was somewhat punished, I believe, for something. So every place it's mentioned in the Gemara where he teaches something, they punished him by, instead of saying his name, they said others recite, acherim. I forget the name of the sage. I'm in my many sins, I forgot what his name was. I remember reading this last year. But apparently it turns out that he is mentioned a couple places by name in the Mishnah. So here it's I don't know who Acherim is in this case. Acherim say, others say, Tzarkat Amcha Yisrael v'aseh meher b'kashatam. Tzarche Amcha Yisrael merubin v'datam k'tzara. Others say that the needs of your people Israel are great. The short prayer goes like this: the needs of your people Israel are great, and their attention is short. May it be your will, God of our fathers, our Lord our God. Please give each and every one his sustenance, his livelihood, and give each living being what he is lacking. Baruch atah Hashem shomei tefillah. Gavia is literally a body. Give each and every body all that it lacks. Rav Huna, Amar Rav Huna halacha ka'acherim. Rav Huna says the true short prayer mentioned in the Mishnah is according to the opinion of acherim. Amar le Eliyahu le Rav Yehuda achud Rav Salah Chasida. Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet, said to Rav Yehuda, the brother of Rav Salah Chasida, Lo tirtach v'lo techete v'lo tirveh v'lo techete v'kishata yotze laderech himalech b'koncha v'tzeh. Elijah the prophet said to Rav Yehuda, brother of Salah, do not get angry and you will not sin. Do not get drunk and you will not sin. And when you set out on a journey, consult with your Creator, with God, and then set out. My himalech b'koncha v'tzeh. What did Elijah mean when he said, consult with your Creator and then go out? Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rav Chisda, zot tfilat derech. That is the traveler's prayer. Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rav Chisda, kol hayotze l'derech tzarich l'tpilel tfilat derech. Everybody who the sages says Rabbi Yaakov said in the name of Rav Chisda that anybody who goes out on a trip or goes out to travel, meaning leaving the city that he lives in or the city where he is staying, he prays the traveler's prayer. My tefillah derech. What is the traveler's prayer? May it be your will. May it be your will before you, Lord our God, that you lead us in peace and you have us walk in the way in peace and you tisbechenu l'shalom. Guide me in peace, rest and direct my steps in peace and guide me in peace. Tismecheni l'shalom. V'tatzileni mikaf kol oyev orev b'derech. And save me from the hand of any enemy or anyone who lies in ambush for me on the way. V'tishlach bracha b'masei yadai. And send a blessing to the work of my hands. V'titneni l'chenu l'chesed u'l'rachim be'enecha ve'ene kol ra'ai. and put grace and favor and love and mercy in your eyes and in the eyes of all who see me. Berakhot Hashem shomei tefillah. Blessed is God who hears prayer. That traveler's prayer. When do you say the traveler's prayer? The halacha is like this. When you set out on a journey, one who sets out on a journey recites, may it be your will, as formulated, as I just read in the Gemara. It is recited in the plural as per the ruling of Abaye. Again, there's a certain distance, let's say roughly a kilometer, you start saying the prayer about a kilometer outside of the city limits. And there's a lot more, there's a few more laws of the traveler's prayer, which we won't get into right now. We're going to continue with the Gemara. Amar Abaye, now we're going to Daf Lamed. Amar Abaye, Leolam lishatef inish nafshe bahadi tzibora. According to Abaye, somebody should always pray in the plural, to join together with the congregation. If you notice, most of the Jewish prayer in the Siddur, it's in the plural, because we're not praying just for ourselves. We're praying for all of Israel. And at times we're praying for the whole world, like in Rosh Hashanah. And every day we pray for the whole world in Aleinu. So prayer is in the plural. Hechi nema, how should one say it? Abaye says like this: Yehi ratzon milefenecha Hashem Elokeinu shetolichenu l'shalom. He's talking specifically about the traveler's prayer. That you should lead us, even if you're alone in the derech. Say it together with all of Israel and say it in the plural. Lead us in peace, etc. Emet Mitzali. When should he pray? Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rav Chisda. Rabbi Yaakov said in the name of Rav Chisda, Misha'ashem halech b'derech ad kama. From the time he sets out until when? Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rav Chisda. Rabbi Yaakov said in the name of Rav Chisda, ad parsa. He said you start once you left the city limits, and you've gone a Persian mile. Now, how far is a Persian mile again? It's 2,000 amas. It might be a little hard for me to find the exact number in meters of a Persian mile, but I'm just going to quickly look back. I don't remember exactly when we discussed it a few daf ago. I can't find it, but an amma is roughly 2 meters. You do the math, times 2,000. So it's called a parsa, or in English we call a Persian mile a parsang. Okay, hechi matzalila. How do you say the traveler's prayer? Rav Chisda Amar Mu'umad. Rav Chisda said you say the traveler's prayer standing up. Rav Sheshet Amar afilu mahalech. Rav Sheshet says you even say it while you're walking. Rav Chisda and Rav Sheshet hayu ka'azle ba'archa. Rav Chisda and Rav Sheshet were walking along the way. Kam Rav Chisda v'kam etzaleh. Rav Chisda stood and he prayed. Amar le Rav Sheshet l'shameh. Rav Sheshet, who was in the same group, he said to his attendants, Maika avid Rav Chisda, what's Rav Chisda doing? Amar le kayu metzaleh. He's standing and praying. Amar le ukma nami lididi v'atzaleh. I am also going to stand and pray. Miyod tov al tikare ra. When you can do something good, don't be called evil. In other words, it was permitted for, according to Reb Chisda, didn't have to stop and pray, but he was being more strict with himself. He stopped and said the traveler's prayer standing. He could have continued along on his donkey or on the camel or whatever he was driving along, or in the wagon, but he wanted to stop and pray. Rav Sheshet knew that it is permitted to say the traveler's prayer while you're going along. Today, when you're driving in the car, you can just say it while you're driving. You don't have to stop the car and stand. If you're in a safe place and there's no problem whatsoever, and you want to be strict, machmir tavola bracha. If you want a special bracha and there's absolutely no danger, you can stop and pray. So and say it standing. That's a machmir position. Rav Sheshet took the lenient position. But the point here, when he said miyotov al tikare ra, when you could be good, don't be called evil. That it was not that he would be evil to do what is permitted. It's just, you see, when you can do it better, do it better. Now this brings up a whole subject of, let's say you are follow leniency, and you're doing what's mutar. You're not doing anything wrong. That's the way you do it. But other people, like, for instance, the question is, when do you have to act in a strict way when you're around other people? If you're a Tziyuni Dati and you don't wear socks, it's perfectly mutter to wear sandals without socks and to pray in sandals. But if you're going, if for some reason you're going to have to go to pray with an ultra-religious community, a very frum shul where you can't wear socks, you got to follow the minhag makom. Okay, if it's just one prayer, you just happen to be in there and you have no other, you don't have to ask anybody for a pair of socks. However, if it's something that you're going to be doing regularly for whatever reason, and you have to pray there, and everybody's wearing socks, you got to do it too, even though at home you would pray without socks on. So that kind of a thing, however, there are certain times for Netilat Yadayim you don't have to do such a thing. For instance, if you use a revis for Netilat Yadayim, 86 cc's, not very much, not half a cup of water. That's all you need for Netilat Yadayim. If you say, there's a shul and everybody's using 2 natlans, they're using 10 reviuses to wash their hands, you don't have to do it like them, because, first of all, just the Piatzetzner Rebbe, the Piatzetzner Rebbe says, if you want to, don't be a phony, be real. The question is, the way you do things at home, you should do it in front of other people. If you're lenient at home, you leave lenience in front of other people also. And if you're strict, you don't be really strict around other people just so they think you're strict. No. So that's why with the law of Netilat Yadayim, everybody else is using a lot of water. You can do what's mutar, and you're not going to pretend to be so strict. The test the Piatzetzner Rebbe says is, if you're in front, if you're very strict at home, you use 2 natlans, 2 big cups of water to wash your hands for Netilat Yadayim, and that's the way you always do it at home. And then in front of other people, you don't want to look like a loony, so you don't do it. That's also being dishonest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. So be the way you do things at home. If you're strict at home, you can be strict in front of other people unless it's going to be causing some sort of a major problem or a riot. But if you're lenient at home, you don't be strict in front of other people unless it's a case like this where everybody else, okay. So in this case it's different because they were going on the way. Rav Chisda and Rav Sheshet were traveling. And for him to continue on ahead would be a problem. Rav Chisda, let's say for instance, Rav Chisda is on his donkey and he stops and prays, and Rav Sheshet is on his donkey and he wants to keep going. That would create a problem. So Rav Chisda, he was more machmir in deference to the group, in order not to make a problem with the group. Even though he knew the way he does it is perfectly permitted. He not just humoring the group. It's called ethical behavior. Next sugya. Mai ika bein havinenu l'tefila ktsara. What's the difference between the havinenu prayer that we discussed before, the shortened version of the middle 13 blessings of the 18 benedictions? What's the difference between that and a short prayer? Havinenu ba'ilitzloye gimel kamaisa v'gimel basraisa. Havinenu, you have to pray 3, the 3 introductory prayers that you're standing before the king, and you say Magen Avraham, Shield of Abraham, and the blessing of who resuscitates the dead, and the prayer, blessed is God, the holy God. Those are the 3. Those are you're standing before the King of Kings, and you're saying, and you're praising the King. And then only after you praise the King with those 3 do you pray for your personal needs with the 13 in the middle. So Havinenu needs the 3. When you're saying Havinenu, which is also an abridged prayer, and it could be used at certain times. There's only 7 blessings. 3 before, 1 Havinenu, which includes all of the 13 middle blessings in the 18 benedictions, and then 3 at the end. Kimati levete lo ba'e lemehadar litzaluye. And then when you get home, you don't have to go back and pray again. B'tfilah ktsara lo ba'e litzluye lo gimel kamaisa v'lo gimel b'saisa. If you're going on the way and you're in a place of danger and need to pray a very brief prayer, you don't bother to say Magen Avraham, Shield of Abraham, etc., the 3 first blessings of the 18. Just say that one line. And then, but when you get home, you have to daven again. So with the Havinenu prayer, if you pray along the way, or in a place of danger, if you have enough time to pray Havinenu, then you're going to have to say it's a place of less danger where you could pray a longer prayer. It's not such a danger. You know things will be okay, but just in case, you got to keep it quick. So that's Havinenu. But in a place of a greater level of danger, then it's just one line. Take care of the needs of Israel, and may you have mercy on us above. Thank you, Lord. Blessed is God. Protect us from all danger. Like we read before in the previous stuff. But if you pray that little short prayer and you go home, when you get into a safe place, or your home is any safe place. Home, Lahavdil, one of the great American writers, said home is a place where they cannot turn you away. That's the definition of home. So then when you get to a place where you can't be turned away, then you daven the regular prayer. Vahilchata havinenu mu'mad tefillah kasura ben mu'mad ben mahalach. Halacha l'maaseh from the Gemara. Havinenu you pray standing, and the short prayer you could pray either standing or while moving. Hayaruchev al-chamor. If you're riding along the donkey and you don't know which direction to pray, what do? Tana Rabbanan hayaruchev al-chamor v'yagia zman tefillah. The rabbis taught. He was riding on his donkey and it came time to daven. Im yeshlo misha yochaz et chavaro et chamaro yered lamat v'tzpalel. So if somebody who can hold his donkey so he doesn't lose his animal, then you go down off the donkey and you pray. Im lav yeshev b'makomo v'tzpalel. If not, you get off you stay on the donkey. If no one can hold it and the donkey's going to walk away, you stay on your donkey and you pray. Rabbi Omer, the question is where you have to get out of these days you have a car. You have to get out of your car and stop, or can you, if there's somebody else to hold your car, I don't know. The question is you have to know your surroundings. If you're in a place where there's no problem to get out and pray, you get out and pray. If there's a place where there might be a problem, you can keep in your car and you can stay in your car and pray sitting down. Rabbi Omer, ben kach ben kach, yeshev b'makomo v'yitpalel. According to Rabbi, in either event, whether you have somebody to hold your donkey or not, you should get off your donkey and pray. You should stay on the donkey and pray. Because you're traveling and you can't concentrate very well. So you'd get off if you got off the donkey, you'd be distracted from the prayer. But if you stay on the donkey, you'd stand a better chance of praying. Amar Rava v'itema Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rava said, and some say it's Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, said halacha is like Rabbi Huda Nasi. Tana Rabbanan Suma umi she'enu yichol lechaven et aruchot yechaven libo keneged aviv shebeshamayim. If a blind person, in which direction should a blind person pray? We're supposed to pray towards Israel or towards Jerusalem. So a blind person should just direct his heart to his Father in heaven. Shneamar v'hitpalel el Hashem, and he prayed to God, as it is written in where's this verse? In the book of Malachim Aleph, chapter 8. Haya omed b'chutz la'aretz yekavenu dibo keneged Eretz Yisrael. If you're outside of Israel, you you face Israel, as it is said, "V'hitpalalu alecha derech artzam," as it says, and they prayed to you the way of the lands. Haya omed beretz Israel, if you're in the land of Israel, yikavenet libo keneged Yerushalayim, you face Jerusalem. Shneimar v'hitpalalu el Hashem derech ha'ir, and they prayed to God by way of the city. Asher bacharta, the city you chose, is Jerusalem. Haya omed Yerushalayim, what if you're standing in Jerusalem? Yikavenet libo keneged Beit HaMikdash, then you face the Temple Mount. Shneimar v'hitpalalu el habayit hazeh, you face the temple. V'haya omed b'beit HaMikdash yekavenet libo keneged Beit Kodesh Kodashim, Kodshei HaKodashim. If you're standing in the Beit HaMikdash, which way do you pray? You pray towards the Holy of Holies, as it is written, V'yitpalalu el hamakom hazeh. It says in Melachim, same chapter in Melachim, and they prayed to this place. Haya omed b'beit Kodesh Kodshei HaKodashim yekavenet libo keneged Beit HaKaporet. If you're standing, what if somebody is standing in the Holy of Holies? Perhaps the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. He's supposed to face the Aron, face the Ark. What if he's standing behind the Ark? He should envision himself as if he's before the Ark. Nimsa, we find, Omed b'mizrach, machzir panav l'marav. If he's facing the east, he turns his face to the west. In other words, if you're in the temple and you're standing in the east is the side of opposite the Kotel, the other side of the Temple Mount, and then you're supposed to face the west. If you're standing in the west, you turn your face to the east. B'darom, if you're in the south, you turn your face to the north, again on the Temple Mount. If you're in the north of the temple, you put your face to the south. In other words, you're always going to be facing the Holy of Holies. Nimsa kol Yisrael makavnim et libam l'makom echad. So we find that all of Israel are actually facing their prayer to one place. We're all praying towards the temple, whether we know it or not. Amar Rabbi Avin v'yitem Rabbi Avina Maikra Kamigdal David Savarech Banuila Talpiot. What does it mean in the Song of Songs that when it says it's like the tower, your neck is like the Tower of David that made Maduila Talpiot means your neck is like the Tower of David built with turrets. In the 4th chapter of the Song of Songs, Talpiot is turrets, but it also, if you break up the words, it means Tel Shekol Hapiot, the mountain that all mouths face. I don't know when he's finishing. I'm sorry, I have no idea. You call him on his phone. What? I'll be done in a half an hour, or maybe 20 minutes. So. So we have a pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Kamigdal David Savarech, your neck is like the Tower of David, Banui L'Talpiot. That's God praising Israel. I'm not sure, it's either God praising Israel praising God, we have to look it up. What's Talpiot? Tel Shekol Piot Ponimbo. It's the mountain that all mouths face. Talpiot. Talpiot is a nickname for Jerusalem, actually. Avur d'Shmuel v'Levi ki havu ba'u lemepak la'orcha havu makdini u'matzali. Shmuel's father and Levi, when they wanted to go out on the way and go traveling, they would pray early. In other words, the time, if you have to go on a trip, it's mutar to pray to Kriyat Shema and the Amida any time after dawn. In other words, the earliest possible time you can pray is 120 minutes before sunrise. 120 minutes before sunrise, you put on your tefillin, and you, I'm going to check this, the halacha l'maaseh. The halacha is like this. In exigent circumstances, I love that word, exigent. If it's absolutely necessary and there's no way around it, one needs to set out on a journey early. He may pray at any time after dawn at home, standing. When the time to recite the Shema arrives, meaning, again, just before sunrise, he recites it in the course of the journey, as per the opinion of the first Tana, even though he does not juxtapose redemption with prayer. So, in other words, the halacha is, you have to go on a trip, and you have to leave really early in the morning. So, let's say it's 120 minutes before, 112 minutes, whatever, before sunrise. Look at your calendar and find out when the earliest alot shachar is, earliest dawn. Don't take my word for it. I know that the latest alot shachar is 72 minutes before sunrise. And there's an earlier one, if you absolutely need to, consult a rabbi. Then you just say the Amida, without Shema. This is in the Shulchan Aruch. Even though you didn't samuch gula l'tefillah. That's only in an extreme case where you absolutely have to leave. These days, the custom, however, is to wait to recite both Shema and Amida prayer in the course of the journey. That's according to the Mishnah Brura. The Mishnah Brura says that's the way we do it, so you can samach gula l'tefillah. Say the Shema and then Goal Yisrael and the blessing after the Shema, and then the Amida, so you're putting them together. However, that's the way we do it. However, it is permitted, if you absolutely have to, just to say the Amida. If you absolutely have no time, you could say the Amida and then you can say the Shema later. Another opinion is that since as a rule we are unable to muster proper intent while praying, it's preferable to juxtapose redemption and prayer. So according to the Shulchan Aruch Harav of the Alter Rebbe, it's very hard to concentrate just stam throwing out an Amida. So the Shema Yisrael prepares us a little bit. So if you have 5 minutes, you have 2 minutes to say Shema, and you have 2 minutes to say the and then the brachas in the Shema, in the 2 blessings before, and then the Shema Yisrael and the 1 blessing Gal Yisrael after. That takes you 3 minutes, and then afterwards you say the Amida. That takes you another 2 minutes. In other words, if you have 6 or 7 minutes to pray, any time after dawn, this is before sunrise, but at dawn, at latest, let's say 72 minutes before sunrise, then if you have those 6 minutes to say all the brachas and then say the Amida, and you have prayed, even though it's too early to say the Shema, because the earliest time to say the Shema Yisrael, again, is a couple minutes before sunrise. And then you can go later on and say the Shema again on time. Back to the Gemara. When it came to some, afterwards they daven, Amida, and then afterwards when it came time for Kriyat Shema they'd pray. Come on. Okay, we know the halacha, now we're going to see how the halacha is derived from the Gemara. Like this Tana, that who taught, Hishkim letzet lederech mevin lo shofar v'tokea lulav menanheya megila v'koreba v'kishiyagi azman Kriyat Shema korei. If you got up very early and they brought you a shofar, you blow. You brought them a lulav, you shake it. Somebody brought you a Megillah, you read it. And then when it comes time to say Kriyat Shema, you read it. So all of these mitzvahs are mutar to do after dawn, the time of dawn. Leshev b'karon u'b'sfina mitpalel. If you're sitting in a carriage, in a train carriage, or in a bus, or in those days in a wagon, or if you're on a boat, you daven. And then when it comes time to pray, you pray. Personally, I don't think you should make minions on airplanes. I think there's definitely room to argue based on the Gemara and the Halacha that a minion on an airplane is a reasonable enough distraction, and it's a dangerous situation. You're supposed to, and it's difficult enough to travel without having 10 people getting up and blocking the room to wait to the bathroom. So if somebody, I mean, if the no seatbelt sign is on, people are supposed to sit down. It could be dangerous. But if it's permitted to walk around, then if you could stand in a place where it's not going to disturb anybody, it's almost impossible not to disturb anyone in airplanes. But then again, okay, then you're praying. First of all, you don't want to pray in the direction of the bathroom. We discussed this earlier, and you don't want to pray in the direction of women. Okay, so the best thing to do is just to sit in your seat and daven alone. That's the way to pray on an airplane. If you have a majority of religious people on the airplane, then you can make a minyan, but the way you do it is you make it sitting down. And then one person raises, the majority of the passengers are daveners, like on the way to Uman. So the way we do it on the way to Uman is everybody's going to Uman on the flight. So you have everybody's sitting down, and one person just is the prayer leader, and he raises his voice, and everybody else says Amen, and daven's sitting in their seat. That's the way to do it. If you're a minority, you don't have. You can daven. You can put on your tefillin sitting down. You can daven sitting down. You don't have to stand up. We make leniencies. When you're traveling, you're not machmir. When you're traveling, you don't be machmir about Chalav Yisrael or Pas Yisrael or Bas Yisrael. Traveling is a lenient time. So what that actually means requires some discussion and understanding. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, ben kach u'ben kach, korei kriyat shema mitpalel. Anyways, you pray, he says you're supposed to daven first kriyat shema and then pray, even if it's before time for kriyat shema. Kedei she'yismok v'lo tefillah. Why? So you can juxtapose the redemption to prayer. It's always better to justify the redemption to prayer. But Ma'ika mitbalgi, what are they arguing about? Marsavar, one says tefillah mu'umad adif. Whose opinion is this? Abu Shmuel and Levi, they say they say daven the Amida, and then when it comes to it's time to say Shema later, say Shema. They were holding according to the opinion brought down in the Breita about with the Lulav and the Megillah and all of that. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, no, you should say Kriyat Shema first, and then Samuch Gula Tefillah, and then Daven, the Amida. What are the two opinions are Avu Shmuel and Levi say first Amida, then Shema. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says no, Shema, and then Amida. What are they arguing about? Mar Savar Tefillah Mu'umad Adif. The first opinion of Levi says that it's more important to stand up and pray. Mar Savar Mismak V'lo Tefillah Adif. The most important thing according to Avu Shmuel and Levi is the standing the Amida. So just stand the Amida and later say the Shema. And Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, he says the most important thing is to juxtapose redemption to tefillah, to the prayer. Maremar Umar Zutra havu machanfe be asara b'shabta de rigla umatzalu. Maremar and Marzutra they made a minyan on Shabbat of the regel when all the sages would get together, and they had to give on the festival they had to give their big speech and teach the Torah, and they would make a special minyan before their lecture on the festival, and v'hadar nafki lepirka, and afterwards they went to the large public Torah lecture. Ravashi Matzali Bahadi Tzibura Biyachid Miushav. Ravashi was in the Beit Midrash and he was giving the lecture. Remember, there was all of the sages of Israel would get together twice a year for the Kala assemblies, and they would before Pesach and before the Chagim, before Rosh Hashanah, in the month of Adar, they would all get together. There was a huge assembly of all the sages in Babylonia, and they would do it also in Elul. And so they were familiar. Everybody would learn the laws of the festivals and the times and the new halachic developments among the sages. So, and there was the leader of the generation would be giving the leading lecture. So Rav Ashi, who wrote the Gemara, edited the Gemara, said he wouldn't actually make a minyan before the Beis Medrash and before the lecture. He would pray amongst the congregation alone, and he would do it sitting down. And then when he went home, he would stand up. Amr le Rabbanan, v'la'avid maremar umarzutra. The rabbi said to him, Rav Ashi, why don't you do it like Maremar and Marzutra, who made a special minyan before the great Torah lecture. Amar lahu tricha li milta. Said it's a tircha. For me, the whole matter is difficult. So why would, first of all, Maremar and Marzutra get 10 people together on Shabbos and pray and then give the lecture, the pirka? Because the crowds gathered to hear the lectures at the festival, they were unable to pray at the proper time, so they prayed early. Rav Ashi, they say, why didn't you do the same thing? He said to him, it's burdensome to me to delay the lecture so much. If I made a minyan, it would push off the lecture. Sages said to him, "Va'avid mar kavua d'Shmuel v'Levi." Said, do it like Shmuel's father and Levi did, and pray before sunrise, so it doesn't push up the lecture. Rav Ashi answered them back, Amar lahu, Lo chazena lahu l'Rabbanan kashishe minan ta'avde hachi. I never saw the elder sages doing it that way, and so I don't believe it is the accepted halacha. That's Rav Ashi. Next Mishnah. Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah Omer, Ein tfilat musafin ele bechever ir. According to Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, you only pray musaf when you have a chever ir. What's a chever ir? According to most commentaries, a chever ir is a type of city council on which the leading sages would sit, either in official capacities or just as religious leaders. The Gaonim and Rashi in certain places translate the word as chaver, like an outstanding Torah scholar. The chaver was the leader or chief rabbi of the city, and the congregation generally prayed with him. According to this interpretation, the musaf, additional prayer, was only recited in the leader's presence. So, the Chachamim omrim, b'chever ir, v'shelo b'chever ir. If you're an individual, you can either pray with, it's time to pray musaf on Shabbat or any of the other days, you can say musaf. That you either pray with the chever ir, with the leader of the generation and his minyan, or you pray alone. You pray musaf no matter what. If you can't get to the minyan, you pray musaf anyway. You might think that, according the first opinion says, Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah says that the musaf prayer is only in the minyan of the chever ir. The Chachamim say no. One would also pray the musaf alone. Either if he's not with the minyan, he prays alone. If he is with the minyan, he prays the minyan. Of course, as we know, this is not halacha l'maseh now, but in terms of halacha l'maseh, we know it's preferable to pray with the minyan. But if one can't pray with the minyan, one prays alone. So Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmo, Rabbi Yehuda says in his name, in whose name? says another opinion in the name of Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. Kol makom sheyesh sham chever ir yachid pator mitfilat musafim. According to Rabbi Yehuda, if there's a chever ir, you don't need to pray musaf. An individual is patur. As long as you have that minion praying musaf, no one else has to pray musaf, according to the Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda hanu Tanakama. The Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda and Tanakama have the same opinion. There is no apparent difference between the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and the opinion cited in his name by Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara says Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is identical to the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah cited by the first Tana. The Gemara answers there is a practical halachic difference between them. Ike benayhu yachid shelo bechever ir. That's the difference is, what's the difference? An individual is not in a place where there's a chever ir. In other words, the place where there's no minion, the first Tana holds Tanakama savar patur. You're patur from it. Rabbi Yehuda savar chayav. Rabbi Yehuda says if in a place where there's no minion, you still pray musaf. You're in a town, there's no minion, you got to pray musaf according to Rabbi Yehuda. No. Rabbi Yehuda says that according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, an individual is obligated to recite the additional prayer, that's like I just said, but he's only exempt in a place where there is a minion. If there is a minion, chever ir, you pray musaf. No, you don't, because the prayer leader in the minion fulfills your obligation. The halacha l'maaseh, each individual is required to say the musaf prayer whether or not there is a quorum of 10 in the city, as per the opinion of the rabbis in their dispute with Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Amar Rav Huna bar Chinana, Amar Rav Chia bar Rav, halacha ka Rabbi Yehuda, Amar mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Amar le Rav Chia bar Avin, Shapir ka Amar. Amar Shmuel, miyamai lo mitzalnein etzlo to the musafim biyachid. Various opinions are said. Rav Huna bar Chinana said the halacha is in accordance with Rabbi Yehuda. He said it, who said it in the name of his teacher, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. But Rav Chia bar Avin said to him, "You've spoken well and proved what Shmuel said. Shmuel said, in all my days, I never prayed a musaf prayer as an yachid in Naharda. Levar mehu yoma deha pulmas de malka lamata v'atridu rabbanan v'lot sali." Except once, when the king's army came into the city and the sages were preoccupied with a big brouhaha, and they didn't pray communally. So I prayed as an individual, and I was an individual and not praying in a quorum of 10. Shmuel was acting according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda in this matter. Yativ Rabbi Chanina karaka med Rabbi Yanai. Yativ b'kamar halach Rabbi Yehuda shene amar mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah amar le pukra kraecha levara. Ve'en halach Rabbi Yehuda shene amar mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Yet this opinion was not universally accepted. The Gemara says Rabbi Chanina Kara, he was a Bible expert, sat before Rabbi Yanai, and he sat and said the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who said in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Yanai said to him, "Go and read your verses outside," as the halacha is not accepted by the sages in the study hall. According to the sages in the study hall, it's like Rabbanan, that even if there's not a chever, you pray musaf alone. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, ani ra'iti et Rabbi Yanai tzali v'hadar tzali. Rabbi Yochanan said, I saw Rabbi Yanai, who prayed and then he prayed again. Presumably his first prayer in the morning and the second prayer was the musaf, and he was alone. So apparently Rabbi Yanai says, yes, you do. His opinion is not like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and it's not like Rabbi Yehuda. What did Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah say? Only say musaf if there's a chever ir. What did Rabbi Yehuda say? When there's a chever ir, an individual does not have to say musaf. So Rabbi Yochanan said, you saw Rabbi Yanai, who prayed 2 prayers one morning. First prayer, Shachris, second prayer, musaf. So that means he did pray musaf, so he's not holding with Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Why? Because there was either there was no chever ir, because he was in a place where there was no chever ir, and he prayed musaf anyway, or He was praying. Okay. He must have been in a place where there was no Hever ear. Rather, he holds that even when one is not a part of a prayer quorum, an individual must recite the additional prayer. Later on, when this story is related in the study hall, Amar le Rabbi Yirmiyah le Rabbi Zera, v'dilma me'ikara lo kaven da'ateh v'lev'so kaven da'ateh. Perhaps, they said, he wasn't praying Musaf, he didn't pray properly the first time, and he prayed a second time because he hadn't prayed with intention. Rabbi Zera said to him, it couldn't be. Chaziman gavre rabba de kemasahid aleh. It's Rabbi Yochanan who saw him do it. You think Rabbi Yochanan wouldn't know? You can rely on Rabbi Yochanan to know if he says that he saw Rabbi Yanai pray Musaf in a place where there was no Hever ear. Rabbi Ami v'Rabbi Yossi, just a little more. Rabbi Ami v'Rabbi Yossi Asi, Rabbi Ami v'Rabbi Asi af al gav tehavaluhu tzleisar ve'kanishta b'Tiveria lo hava matzale ele bene amude hechala tehavo garse. Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi had many shuls in Tiveria, were minions, but they only prayed between the pillars, meaning in the Beit Midrash. And the Pnei Yeshua says that they held that they didn't need a minyan, so they prayed alone in the Beit, as individuals in the Beit Midrash. Itmar Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi mishum Rabbeinu Amar halachak Rabbi Yehuda she'amar mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Rabbi Chia bar Abba Tzali v'Hadar Tzali. It was stated Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi in the name of Rabbeinu Rav, that meaning Rav. He said the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who said in the name of Elazar ben Azariah. The Gemara relates, Rabbi Chia bar Abba Tzali v'Hadar Tzali. Rabbi Chia bar Abba prayed and then prayed again. Amar le Rabbi Zera, Ma'itama avid marhachi. Rabbi Zera said to him, why did you do it like this? Ilema mishum delo kavin mar date. Did you do it like this because the master didn't have the proper intention and he felt that he was not yotze? He didn't fulfill his obligation, so he had to pray again with intention. V'amar Rabbi Elazar, le'olam yimod adam et atzmo, im yachol lechaven ad libo yitpalel, im lav al yitpalel. Didn't Rabbi Eliezer say that a person should always carefully consider and meditate and look in his heart before he prays and say, do I have the wherewithal and the frame of mind where I can pray? And if he does have the proper frame of mind, he prays. And if he does not have the proper frame of mind, he should not pray. Ela de la adkar mar deresh yarcha. Apparently, that was not, he didn't use this reason because again, Rabbi Chia bar Abba, he prayed twice. So Rabbi Zera said to him, what? You don't follow the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer that you shouldn't pray twice? You should actually, if you look into yourself and say, can I pray? And if you can, you pray. And if you don't, you don't. But you certainly don't pray a second time. No, rather it was because rather it was because my master didn't mention the new moon in his prayer. The reason why Rabbi Chia bar Abba prayed twice is because he forgot to say Ya'aleh v'yavo, the special prayer we add on Rosh Chodesh, the new moon. V'hatanya ta'avolo hitkir et Rosh Chodesh ba'aravit. Ein machzirin oto mipnei shechol la'omra b'shachrit. B'shachrit ein machzirin oto mipnei shechol la'omra b'musafin. B'musafin ein machzirin oto mipnei shechol la'omra b'mincha. Wasn't it taught that you don't have to say two shachrises if you didn't say Ya'aleh v'yavo in Rosh Chodesh? Because if you didn't say it in Aravit, you're gonna be able to say it in Shachrit. And if you forgot to say Ya'aleh v'yavo in Shachrit, you're gonna be able. You don't say Shachrit again because you can say it in Musaf. We don't do that today, but this in the Gemara, in the days of the Gemara, it was different. And in the Musaf prayer, you don't
if you didn't mention the new moon, you don't have to pray Musaf again, because you can say it again in Mincha. Consequently, that was not the reason. Omitting mention of the moon noon doesn't require one to repeat any of the Amidas. Consequently, that was not the reason Rabbi Chia bar Abba prayed a second time. So why did Rabbi Chia bar Abba pray twice? Amar le lav itmar Allah. Amar Rabbi Yochanan b'tzibur sham. Rabbi Chia bar Abba said to him, wasn't it stated in a Braita that Rabbi Yochanan said they taught this Braita specifically with regard to prayer in a communal framework? However, an individual who fails to mention Rosh Chodesh, Ya'aleh V'yavo, is required to pray again? That is why Rabbi Chia bar Abba prayed twice, because he needed to say Ya'aleh V'yavo. That whole Braita where you don't have to repeat it because you're going to be able to say it in the next prayer was taught about a minyan. But if you don't have a minyan, you pray twice. Kama yisheh ben tefillah de tefillah. Rav Huna v'Rav Chisda. How long should you wait between two prayers? Let's say you got back-to-back Shacharis and Musaf. Chalamar kadeshet titchonen dato alav. Rav Huna and Rav Chisda agreed in this in principle, but they formulated their opinions differently according to Rashi. One says that an individual must wait long enough so that his mind will be in a pleading mode, titchonen, enabling him to recite the second prayer as a plea. And one of them said, long enough so his mind will be chadamar ad kadesh titcholel dato alav, that his mind will be in a beseeching mode. Titcholel, enabling him to beseech God in the second prayer. Mandamar kadesh titchonen dato alav diktiv ve'atchanan el Hashem. The one who says shetitchonen dato, that his mind should be in a pleading mode, he quotes the pasuk in the name of the parsha Vayetchanan, Deuteronomy chapter 3, where Moses said, and I pleaded before God. That's the proof text for the one who says titchonen. Umandamar kadesh titcholel dato alav. And the one who says his mind will be in a beseeching mode, titcholel, he uses the proof text Vayechal Moshe, as is written in Moses besought. Vayechal, Moses besought the Lord. Exodus 32. Amar Rav Anan Amar Rav Tav V'lo Hizkir Shel Rosh Chodesh B'Aravit and Machzirim Oto. If you forgot to say Ya'aleh V'yavo on Rosh Chodesh in Aravit, in the evening prayer, you don't have to repeat the evening prayer. Lefi she'en bet din mekadshin et chodesh ela b'yom, because the whole thing is about the new moon, and the courts would not sanctify the new moon at nighttime. They would only do it during the day. Amar Amemar mistabra milta derav b'chodesh maleh, aval b'chodesh chaser machzirin oto. According to Amemar, if you have 2 days Rosh Chodesh, right, then on the 30th day, months are either 30 days or 29 days. A full month is a 30-day month. A short month is 29. So, according to Amemar, you say it if you didn't say Ya'aleh V'yavo on the night of the 30th, you don't require him to go back and say the Amida again, because you can say it the next night, which is also Rosh Chodesh. If you have 2 days Rosh Chodesh, you're going to have another day to say it. But in a short month, when you have the 1 day Rosh Chodesh, a 29-day month, you would have to return and say it. That's Amemar's opinion. Amar le Ravashi la Amemar mikti. Ravashi said to Amemar, consider this. Since Rav stated a reason for his statement, right? Mikdeh Rav Ta'ama Ka'amar. Rav gave a reason. Mali Chaser, Mali Maleh. Rav gave his reason that it's about sanctifying the moon, and the court would sanctify the moon only during the day. So therefore, and because the prayer is in the place of the court sanctifying the moon, you don't need to do it at a different time. If it's at night, you don't have. You should remember l'chatchila at the outset. Remember, but in retrospect, if you forgot it, you don't have to repeat it. Hadran elak tfilat shachar. Again, mali chaser, mali malay, ela lo shana. But rather, there is no difference. Bli neder, we will come back to this chapter maybe in 7 years, if we're zoche, and maybe in 14 years if we're zoche. And if you want to look at it again and see the YouTube again, fine. Shalom u'bracha miRushalayim.